My name is Cora and welcome to Craftopia, where we are creating a safe space for artists and crafters of all ages and experience levels to learn, create, explore, and grow. I'd like to invite you to check out our website at www.crafttopiawa.com, where you can learn more about our organization and vision and see a list of upcoming classes. You can also follow us on social media at CrafttopiaWA. Now, pull up a chair, get comfortable, and let's get crafty.
Hey friends, today I'm going to show you how to sew these beads and feathers onto your fun bead and feather necklace. So we do have a couple of options for you today, a lot of different things that you can think about and really ways that you can customize this and make it something truly special just for you. So first things first, let's talk a little bit about embroidery floss. So you should have a big piece of this in your packet if you're using a kit from Craftopia. Embroidery floss comes in something that's called ply. So basically when something is plied, it means that there are a bunch of little pieces that are wrapped and twisted together. So embroidery floss traditionally is 6-ply, meaning there are 6 separate threads that are wrapped together in order to form the big cord. Now you can do this project by using all 6 threads. If you do, you actually can see the embroidery floss quite a bit on your necklace itself, or you can separate those threads out if you're looking for something a little thinner. So this one up here, I'm only using 2 of the threads at a time. As you can still see it, but it's definitely not quite as prominent in the other necklace. Now, if you do less threads, then you also have the option of putting it onto a sewing needle if you have one of those handy. Otherwise, you'd continue to use the same technique as you do with the thick one, which I'll show you in a moment. But if you do decide you want to do it with less, you can do it with 1, you could do it with 3, you could do it with 4, whatever you want. Essentially, all you're going to have to do is untwist it, so twist the opposite way of it's wrapped, and you should be able to get your fingers through those threads and start separating them out just by pulling them open. Oop, and I dropped it. So once you have what you need, you just slide them apart, and you can continue to do that for whatever length you need. Now, I recommend cutting about 2 to 3 feet of cord off embroidery floss off at a time. That just makes it a little bit easier to work with as you're stringing things. You don't have quite as much extra floss hanging out there. Now, I'm going to show you how to do the easiest way with all 6 strings first, and then I'll show you a couple of options with the thinner as well. So we're going to be using a wrapping technique in order to move our floss along our necklace cord here. All we're literally going to do is take our embroidery floss and wrap it around the cord. 1, 2, however many times you want to do to move to whatever section you want in order to tie your next piece on. Now, right now I've got these wrapped pretty loose. You can also, if you really like the look of the embroidery floss, you can wrap it really tight and cover the whole thing. And that obviously will require a lot more wrapping and a lot more floss, but you should have enough floss in your packet to do the whole thing. So it is up to you, again, with how you want to make your necklace look. I'm just going to do 5 or 6. That seems to be a good amount for me. And then I am going to pull them kind of close together, but not too close, because I want to be able to see those swirls. Now, if we just start adding things on now, this whole thing might come loose and nothing's going to stay put. So we are going to want to tie a knot before we move on. In order to do that, the way I like to think about it is I will wrap it over in a very big loop, come through, and I'm going to tuck my tail through the hole that I made 2 times. So it's going to go through 1, and then again through twice. So this is a double overhand knot, and that just gives you a really nice secure knot the first try without having to do much else. And see, now my little swirls on my cord are pretty thoroughly secure, and they're not going to come untwisted or unraveled. So now I'm going to add a bead. As you can see, the more you work with your embroidery floss, the more it might start to untwist. The easiest way to fix this is actually just to stick it in your mouth and get a little bit of slobber on it. Mwah! That will help keep your threads a little bit closer together. If you're having a hard time, you can also put a little bit of glue on the end and let that dry, or you can use a piece of tape and then cut that piece of tape really long and thin, and then it will kind of serve as a needle for you. So again, completely optional. I'm going to take my piece of tape. It's a nice long piece of tape, probably longer than I need. I'm going to stick my thread right on the middle and then fold my tape over in half. Probably kind of hard to see since it's clear there. And then I'm going to take a pair of scissors and I'm essentially going to cut this off so that it becomes a really thin piece. So I'm going to start here by my thread. I don't want to cut right up against it because otherwise it'll just pop open. I'm going to try to get it close because I don't want to add too much bulk. And then as I get further away from the tail of my thread, I'm going to try to make my tape thinner and thinner until it comes to a point. And now I have something that should poke through my beads pretty easily. So I'm going to go ahead and smush that down. I'm going to choose my next bead. I think I'm going to do this kind of purple looking one up here. I'm just going to take my little piece of tape, shove it through my bead till it comes out the other side, and see, now I have something that I can easily grab and pull through. Again, you don't have to do that. It just can make it a little bit easier when trying to poke through those beads especially. Now you've got a couple options as far as how you attach things onto your lanyard or your, whatever we're calling this, your necklace base. If you like the loop and loose look, you can certainly just leave it down and dangling and then tie another overhand knot here. And then you have a loop-de-loop. Or if you want to tie it all the way up against your string, same thing. We're just going to pull it as tight as we want. So play around with what kind of distance you want that to be from your cord. And then once you have it where you're happy, again, same thing as before, we're going to do a big loop over. And then we're going to tuck it through that loop we made 2 times. 1, and it doesn't really matter if you go front to back to front, it all ends up being the same thing in the long run. And 2, and then pull it nice and tight. I like keeping my finger there until the very last second. That's going to help keep that bead close to that lanyard as I tie that knot. 2. And now I have a bead attached. Ta-da! All right. So I'm going to do a few more loop-de-loops around to get to where my next one's going to be attached. Or I think I was doing 5 or 6. I don't really know for sure how many I did that last time because I kind of stopped counting halfway through. So we're going to call that good. Well, that's a little further than I want, so let's tighten that up a bit. I think I might have unwrapped one on accident as well. Okay, so same thing, double overhead hand knot here in order to secure my swoop-de-swoops in place. Tuck it through 1, tuck it through 2, and hopefully pull tight. There we go. And spread those out because they got a little loose there. Ta-da! Now it's time to attach a feather. Let's see, I just did a purpley bead. Let's do a purpley feather. For our feathers, all we're going to do is wrap our embroidery floss around the end of our feather here. I recommend doing at least 8 to 10 times. You can certainly do more if you want to cover more of it in floss, or less, although less does tend to lend itself to being able to pull out really easily. So you'll also need to decide where along your floss you want your feather to end up hanging. Do you want it to be down and loose? Do you want it to be up right close to your cord? I'm going to do this one kind of loose because I got this one over here a little loose, so I'm going to do this one really loose. So I'm going to actually start it like way down here. So I'm going to pinch my cord, put my feather in its place, and then just wrap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now I'm going to leave a little bit of floof on this side still because that does help hold it in place. You certainly don't have to, though. The closer you wrap up to this tip, the more likely it is to fall off. Now, in order to secure my wraps where it is, I'm going to tie this piece to this piece. And we're just going to do a regular knot, nothing special there. So cross it and tuck it through. I'm going to do that 2 times just to make sure it's extra secure. 1 probably would be sufficient, but I don't like taking any chances. So there's 1, and then 1 more time, cross it over and tuck it through. And then we're ready to move on. So I'm going to try to figure out about where equal is. So we'll hang nicely in the middle, and then I'm going to do one more knot up here in order to hold that in its place. So double overhand knot, wrap around, make a big loop, go through 1 time and 2 times. Now my cord is getting pretty small, and I am definitely, I guess I should do one thing at a time. 1 time, didn't quite get through that 2nd time. There we go. I don't have a lot of floss left here to work with, and obviously I've got a lot more necklace cords to go through. So if you do find yourself running low, then you'll just want to tie another piece on. Now the way I like to tie on, let's see if I can find the other end that's not pulled apart like I was doing, there we go, is just by tying my cords kind of crisscross. So I'm going to tie this one onto this cord and then this one onto this cord. So just a plain old knot. I'm going to wrap it around and then tuck it through itself so that it's knotted there. And then the other one, wrap it around and then tuck it through. It doesn't too much matter which way your tails are pointing because we're going to end up trimming them off anyways. That tape is being trouble now. And then once you have your 2 knots, you should be able to just slide them together. And they are nice and tight, and you can trim these little tails off. I ended up pulling my feather too far by doing that. All right, and then you can just continue wrapping and attaching your beads and feathers as you see fit. Now, if you do happen to have a sewing needle, you've got a few more options. Because these necklace cords actually are also applied, I think they might be braided. So they are a bunch of pieces that are being braided together. If you pinch them and squish them together, you'll notice they kind of loosen and open up. So if you have a needle handy, you can continue doing the same thing even with less pieces of thread, or you actually can sew right through this cord. So that opens up a whole world of possibilities as far as what things you can do. You can tie all sorts of cool knots. You can do just little loops of thread like this without beads, with feathers. You can also, if you're really careful, sew right through the middle of your feather. This is a little bit trickier, but it can be done. I recommend probably putting it on a table to poke through first because they are a little hard sometimes. Oh, and then I had it. This one has an extra feather on it. That's why it's being fussy. There we go, because the feathers are a little bit hollow. So see all sorts of interesting possibilities you can do this way also. Same thing, if you run out, just tie it. And then once you make it all the way over to your other end, you're just going to tie your thread onto that other little loop. So you end up with thread sewn on both ends to start and to finish. And then your necklace is complete and ready to wear. I hope you have a fabulous time making something fantastic, and I can't wait to see what you create.
We hope you had a good time crafting with us today. If you have any questions regarding this project, feel free to leave a comment below or send us an email at info@crafttopiawa.com. And be sure to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on any future crafty goodness. Until next time!